Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm happy to be back after a week's hiatus. Last week I was at the 67 Pall Mall Awards in London, and I don't believe I've ever seen so much communication talent in one room. I want to take a minute to congratulate the winners. Peter Richards, MW, and Susie Berry, MW, of my favorite wine podcast, Wine Blast, won the audio category. Hannah Bakshi, the brilliant editor of Eater Atlanta, won both short form video and long form writing categories. Andre Mack of Bon Appetit won the long-form video category. Nick Ryan of The Australian and Adelaide Sunday Mail won the short-form writing category for his work in World of Fine Wine. And finally, our Amanda Barnes won Best All-Around Communicator for her work in Decanter, World of Fine Wine on YouTube and on podcasts. I also want to congratulate anyone who received positive results from the Stage 1 or Stage 2 MW exam today. It's been a long 3 months waiting for those results, and it feels good to have closure. Personally, I'll need to reset the tasting portion of the exam again next June. I passed the theory portion last year, and while it's not the result I was hoping for, part of the process of such a high-level exam is being able to use failure to motivate yourself to do better. On to the news. Today I'm going to discuss a recently published report on whether wine is good or bad for you, one of the smallest harvests in France in a century, Alpha Estate's acquisition of Boutari Winery in Greece, and the start of harvest in Virginia, New York, Washington State, Oregon, and the Loire Valley. Starting with wine and health. I'll be brief. On Wednesday, we republished a report from Harvard Public Health magazine, free to read. It's not so much breaking news as it is breaking from the thought process that has characterized the media in the last 6 months. It highlights that however much we like black and whites and want to say unequivocally, alcohol isn't bad for you, or alcohol is bad for you, the evidence doesn't support either. The authors point out that a study from the United Kingdom found that women who consumed moderate amounts of alcohol had increased rates of breast cancer, but decreased rates of thyroid cancer. In another study, drinking moderately increased premature death if alcohol was consumed outside of mealtimes, but decreased death when consumed with meals. In essence, it's complicated. The key takeaway was that alcohol can be beneficial or harmful, and that without large, long-term, high-quality studies, you can't trust the simplified headlines that are being splashed around vilifying alcohol absolutely. I highly recommend you make time and you go read that report. On to one of the smallest harvests in France in a century. If you've been listening or reading this weekly news report, this might not come as a surprise. The inclement weather that has characterized much of France's 2024 vintage has not been normal. And while the frost-beleaguered 2021 and 1957 vintages will still hold the records for lowest yields, 2024's hail, mildew, rain, and rot has made it arguably more challenging. On September 10th, France's Ministry of Agriculture published estimated statistics for 2024. Overall national production is forecast to be down 18% year on year and 11% compared to a 5-year average. Champagne and Corsica have fared relatively well and are the only areas projected to have above average yields of 9% and 8% respectively. On the other end, Jura is expected to see 56% lower yields than average. The Charente, the area between Loire and Bordeaux, is expected to see a 17% decline. Bordeaux is down 16%, the Loire 15%, Provence 14%, southwestern France and the Languedoc-Roussillon both are projecting a 9% decline. Alsace 6%, and Burgundy, Beaujolais, and the Rhone all down 5% compared to average. Overall, these are pretty devastating numbers, but considering the robust 2023 crop, I'm hoping producers can weather the sharp vicissitudes in production. France is not the only country affected. Austria is also expecting lower than average yields this vintage, and as previously reported, Santorini's harvest was cripplingly small this year. Speaking of Greece, there was a rather large acquisition confirmed today. Alpha Estate, an incredibly respected producer in the Amendion region of Greece, completed the purchase of the Boutari Winery in Santorini a few hours ago. This deal only pertains to the winery, not the vineyards, but it will allow Alpha Estate to expand into production of Assyrtiko, likely with the release of the 2024 vintage. Finally, harvest in Virginia, New York, Washington State, Oregon, and France's Loire Valley. It's been a couple weeks, so I apologize if you sent in and I'm just getting to your emails. Firstly, Virginia started harvest on August 1st for sparkling wines and were well underway with white and reds by August 25th. This timeline was around 10 days earlier than usual. In New York, Brian Barmore, who works for 21 Bricks Winery in Lake Erie AVA, emailed to say that their harvest started the week of September 2nd and that they were harvesting Marquis, which is a hybrid bred by Cornell, Niagara, a Lambrusca variety, Bacchus, a hybrid bred by Geil Weilerhoff Institute in 1933, and Dornfelder. A neighboring winery had harvested Pinot Noir for sparkling. In Washington State, Steve Robertson of Delmas emailed to say that harvest in Walla Walla is underway and that their first pick was Syrah on September 4th from the Rocks District of Milton Freewater AVA. In Oregon, Kim Abrahams of Lingua Franca texted saying that harvest has been ongoing in Willamette Valley since the end of August for sparkling, but that Chardonnay just started to trickle in last week. It's a very slow start and there's a lot of heterogeneity between sites, so it's likely to be quite a protracted harvest. On a trip to the Loire Valley, education director for the Académie de Vin, Alison Burton-Parker, emailed me with the news that harvest in the Loire at La Grange Tiffaine in Touraine began on August 23rd, which was actually later than expected. If you have information on the start of harvest in places I have not yet mentioned, so far, in addition to what I covered today, I've mentioned Germany, Austria, Languedoc, Greece, Sicily, Hungary, and California. Please email me at news@channel